All right, so we're going to be going over the LB 170 hookup today. We're going to be doing a single tank hookup first, and then we're going to be doing a manifold hookup for you secondly on a new heater. So first things first is we're going to be double checking the power. Power is the most important thing, because if you have no power, you got no chance of this thing starting. So what we're going to do is we're going to find an outlet. We're going to run this extension cord to the back of the heater. We're just going to double check, make sure we got power. The indicator comes on, you know you got power. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that in the neutral position for now until we get done hooking up the heater. So what we're going to do, we're going to run your regulator. We're going to stretch this out, make sure that you got no kinks in your hose. And we're going to connect it to the propane tank. All LB 170s will be connected to a 100-pounder. Anything less, it won't operate correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the regulator's in. Copper seals itself. So typically you will not have to use Teflon tape to seal this. You just got to get it on with a wrench. Once we tighten this down with the wrench, we're going to open up the valve just to double check to make sure if anything's leaking out. So now that I got it on there pretty good, we're going to open up this valve and just double check with a quick little sniff. You don't smell any propane, go ahead and close it back up. That means you are sealed and good to go. Once you are sealed and good to go, we are going to hook on your thermostat, okay? So we are doing an older heater first because there's two different styles of thermostats now that we have a newer version of a heater. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna plug this in first into your connection, and then you're gonna run your power to it. So if you are out and say snowy conditions or rainy conditions, you're gonna wanna tape up these connections on the older heaters. The reason why they went away with this on the newer heaters so you don't have to go through this. But if it is weather out and you're expecting rain or snow, you will have to tape these connections. Once your thermostat is plugged in, you're gonna run it to your nearest tent leg. This is not a tent leg per se, but we're acting as if it is one. So once we run our thermostat, we're gonna grab our zip ties. So theoretically, this cable is running underneath your sidewall that goes from leg to leg. Once you run your thermostat underneath your sidewall, you're gonna go inside here. You're gonna see these two top connections, okay? You're gonna feed your zip tie through like that. And you're gonna zip tie this on the inside of the tent, okay? And what I like to do is I like to go about chest height. That way people can view it over any kind of seating arrangements, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and zip tie this on the top side first. Okay, once we get that on there nice and tight, we're gonna go ahead and zip tie the bottom side, okay? And just like the top, we're gonna go through the bottom bead, okay? Swing it over, zip tie it on tight. Now, because we are always looking for quality control, what you're going to do on the bottom of your leg is you're going to get this cable nice and tight to the leg. You're gonna zip tie it on the bottom, okay? That way you don't have any slack dangling out and it's looking like crud, okay? Once we zip tie that, again, with the quality control, we are going to use our knife or scissors and we're going to cut these ends off the zip ties because it doesn't look very good when they're hanging off. So we're gonna clip those, quality control, make it look nice and neat. We're gonna cut that bottom one and we're just gonna pull this out from underneath the sidewall. That way the customer is not viewing that cord, okay? So we're gonna go back to the back of this heater. Make sure that everything's connected, we are good. After we get done taping our connections, we can go ahead and we're gonna run the vents. This is a slinky. The slinkies will get used for your heater vents, not straight vents. The straight vents will connect straight to your heater. This is a heater vent. The heater vent will have the hooks to go straight to the heater. And this is only on the old heaters, not the newer heaters. The newer heaters have a magnetic connection. So again, this is just for the older heaters. This is a straight vent because you've got both the tabs coming off. You align both those tabs up with the front of the heater. Once you do so, get one side in, and then you'll have to manipulate the other side. Once you're locked in, you're good. Your sidewall will basically be right about on this line of the diffuser. So, now that we're going to show you the slinky version, this is a heater vent. The heater vent does not have any hooks onto it. This heater vent gets connected to the heater slinky. So when you're doing a ticket for a heater and the customer's wanting a slinky because of the fire department's wanting that heater 10 feet away from the tent, you will add the heater vent, not the straight vent. And we'll show you why. So again, our thermostat is hooked up to a leg. So that is going to be the perimeter of the tent. So we're going to drop this heater vent right on the line of the legs. So your sidewall is going to sit basically right in this little area right here. It's going to catch it, okay? So once we have that placed, we are going to go ahead and hook up your heater slinky. Now, just like the straight vent, your heater slinky is going to have these two tabs, okay? And you're going to connect them in one side first, then the other side. Once you have that installed in, you're going to go to the heater, and again, you'll have these two hooks that slide into the heater itself. Typically, the fire department is going to want the heater 10 feet away from your sidewall. So that's why we have this tube, okay? And again, if we're not able to stake, we will utilize a wooden propane platform. This is how we secure our propane tanks if you're not able to stake down into the ground. So if you have a tent that's being weighted down by concretes, right away if they're wanting a heater, you're going to throw on a propane deck board. And we will show you how to strap your propane down safely onto your deck. You will have 3 rings on your propane platform, okay? The reason why we do 3 rings is because sometimes the customer is going to want an additional tank on their heater rental, which adds about an additional 8 hours to your run time. One 100-pound propane tank will run typically 8 hours on a 170. You add another tank, that's 16 hours of run time. Okay, so what we're gonna do first with your 1-inch ratchet is you're gonna find your loops. Once you find your loops, you will be able to weave it through your eyelets. And let me show you how you do that. So if we're only doing 1 tank, we're gonna go to the nearest eyelet. We're not gonna go over here because we're not doing 2 tanks. So you'll weave that through just as is. Once you get that loop through your eyelet, you're gonna feed your ratchet through and pull it down tight so all the slack's out. Then you're gonna go to the other eyelet next to it. You're gonna get your strap in, find your loop. Once you find your loop, you're gonna weave it through. You're gonna pull all the slack through once it's nice and tight. Once you get it nice and tight, you're gonna weave it through these slots of the propane tank, okay? Once you weave it through the slots, you're gonna pull it down and you're gonna ratchet it tight. Once you ratchet it tight, the fire department that comes and does the permit check isn't gonna have an issue with this because again, your tank's not gonna blow over in the wind. And that's what they're mainly scared about, are these tanks falling over. They want these tanks upright. So now that we have our regulator hooked up to our propane, we made sure that our propane was sealed, we have our thermostat hooked up, we have our thermostat connections on our older style heaters taped up so we can't get any precipitation in there to cause any electrical issues. Once that's done, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go back to your propane tank. You are going to turn on your propane tank. Once that's on, you're gonna go down to the bottom switch and you're gonna make sure that it's in the upright position. That is heat. The bottom alpha neutral is just a fan, okay? It's not going to produce heat. So you need to flick it on the top position. That's when you know the heater is ready. So now that that's running, we're gonna go and make sure that our thermostat is in its proper position. We are going to turn on the thermostat, make sure that's dialed in correctly. We're gonna go with about 80 degrees. So, once your thermostat is on and you hear the heater trickle, you're gonna put your hand down here by the vent and make sure that your heater is operational. It has fired and it is burning, so we're gonna go ahead and let that run for about 5 to 10 minutes before we leave the job site to make sure first that this heater doesn't have any malfunctions. Second, make sure that the power is sufficient and it's gonna hold the heater through the night. And thirdly, we're also double checking just to make sure that we are not gonna have any issues with the sidewalls, you're not gonna have any kinking with your tube. So if you see the tube kinking like you do now, you're gonna have to position this heater further back to where you're not gonna get a kink in the tube. If you have a kink in the tube, what's going to happen is that heat is gonna get pushed back into the heater and it's gonna reset the reset switches, not allowing the heat to produce. So whenever you are using a slinky and a heater vent, always make sure that you have plenty of room to stretch out that hose to where you're not gonna get any backfires into the heater. So that is not correct. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to adjust the placement of the heater. So this is a correct way to hook up a slinky with a heater vent, because now there's not gonna be any backfires in that tube and it's running straight out. So we're gonna disconnect